Hello. For the past 2 weeks, I wanted to encourage people to pray in Ascension Tide and in the run up to Pentecost. And I hope that you found it helpful to keep going with your quiet time with God, or perhaps to find new prayer resources that will feed and sustain that relationship. In this midweek reflection, I'd like to return to what we've been doing before and to spend a bit more time reflecting on our feelings. I appreciate that for the average older British male, it is easier pulling teeth. But as we prepare to come out of lockdown, whilst some are relieved, many are feeling deeply anxious. We still don't understand this virus and what counts as an acceptable risk anyway. Now, instead of saying, how do we cope with being in lockdown, we're wondering, how do we cope with going out more? Being honest and open about difficult feelings can be helpful at a time like this. Last time we looked at the theory of the emotional fingerholds technique, so here's a quick executive summary of what we learned last time. The thumb represents emotional pain and insecurity. The index finger represents fear or panic. The middle finger represents anger, rage. The ring finger is the worry finger for when we feel anxious, and the little finger represents low self-esteem for when we feel small. And now to the practice. So the fingerholds practice works like this. First of all, you need to find somewhere quiet where you can sit and where you won't be disturbed for about 10 minutes. And then try to take 3 deep breaths, breathing from the diaphragm, deep breaths, and then breathe evenly and gently. And then beginning with the thumb and then the index finger, hold each finger with the opposite hand. You can work with either hand and hold each finger for around 2 minutes. Reflect on the feeling that each finger presents. Recognize and acknowledge any strong or disturbing feelings that you hold inside yourself. And then breathe out slowly and let go. And try to imagine the feelings draining out from your finger into the earth, to ground those feelings. Often as you hold each finger, you might feel a pulsing sensation, your heartbeat. And we can usually identify when we discern this pulsing that it can be stronger in a particular finger or fingers. And these are the areas that we can give our attention to and to work on. It's the index finger for me at the moment. I'm conscious that I'm occasionally overwhelmed at the thought of losing vulnerable members of my family, my household. For most of the time we're coping fine and doing really well. But we are conscious, however, I'm conscious of a significant amount of panic being repressed. The theological underpinning of an exploration of our feelings and our emotions is the incarnation, God becoming human. In his passion, Jesus was humiliated and isolated. He knew anxiety, fear, uncertainty. A key characteristic of Jesus' ministry is that he was frequently overwhelmed. He allowed himself to be overwhelmed by the needs of others. There's a particular spiritual tradition within Christianity which has a strong focus on our feelings and our emotions. It's the Beguines. And the Beguines were mainly women, and they had a particular care, a charism, care of the sick and the dying. It was a very experiential spirituality, very hands-on. They managed to integrate both contemplation and action. The Focolare movement seem to be the natural successors to the Beguines today. Chiara Lubich, the founder of the Focolare movement, said this: "We live the word by living in mutual love. Doing this, we shall have the thoughts and the feelings of Jesus. Doing this, we shall have the thoughts and feelings of Jesus." In Beguine spirituality, there's a very strong identification with Christ in his suffering, a desire not to back away, but to draw closer, to be in a difficult place when we focus on the passion, the human suffering of the man Jesus Christ. The Beguine mystic Mechtild of Hackeborn explains the significance of each finger in a mystical sense. The ring finger, for instance, signifies the fidelity of his heart, caring for us, Christ caring for us like a devoted mother. Join this finger with his and acknowledge your great debt of fidelity to this faithful lover of your soul. The lover of your soul holds your hand in his fingers entwining yours, that he may show you how you ought to follow him by imitating his example. You may find the accompanying YouTube clip from Capacitar International that helps with the emotional fingerholds practice to have a go at doing the meditation. And you'll see that I bring a specifically Christian response as to how we can proceed when a particularly strong emotion emerges, and recognising that our faith in God will address this. I'd remind you of the value of deep breathing, breathing from the diaphragm to fill that extra capacity in our lungs, and that can help us to really relax at a deep level and to be able to let go of deep-rooted pain and anxiety and to give it to God. 1 Peter chapter 5 verse 7, cast all your anxiety, cast all your care upon him, because he cares for you. I'd suggest that when faced with insecurity, sometimes repeating a verse from the Psalms can be the antidote. Taste and see that God is good. Know your yearnings understood. Find your true security. That's Psalm 34. To combat fear, I'm sure I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. That's hope in our time, a verse from Psalm 27. When the predominant feeling is anger, we need to seek refuge in its opposite. I lift my eyes to the quiet hills, to a calm that is mine to share. That's Psalm 121. What's the opposite of anxiety? Faith, trust. His holy angels keep my feet, secure from every stone. I trust in him. Psalm 91. And last but not least, when we feel small, know that you're of great value to God. O God, you search me and you know me. That's Psalm 139. Having an awareness of these challenging feelings can bring us closer to Jesus, who experienced all of these human emotions, because in God we are secure, hopeful, calm, trusting, and valued. Amen.